Yeah, go ahead.
All right, back to work this week. Defense had played, relatively good the entire season. I know those first couple of drives you'd like to have back. What was kind of the setbacks you saw at Texas Tech?
Yeah, it's hard to find any positive, and that's just really disappointing to say, and gut-wrenching to say as a coach, because you point the finger back at yourself and say, how can't you get your guys to perform with effort and execution on that type of stage against that type of opponent? So, zero positives, unfortunately. And so you just you take it, you look in the mirror, and you mentioned that you get back to work, and football punishes you. It punishes us on Saturday, and we got embarrassed. And so now you get to decide, what are you going to learn from some of those things? And the one thing I will say, messaging-wise, is if we would have done some of the things we did in that game, effort and execution, we wouldn't have had any success over the course of the year. So a lead opponent, and that's one thing, and you can make excuses and all those things from that standpoint, or you can look at it through the lens of, okay, well, what if we just played our best game? What if we just did our job with maximum effort, and see if the scoreboard goes a different way? But we didn't do those things, and you don't get redo. So, back to work this week with major messaging on those two fronts. Is do your job, play with effort, and to see what the score looks like at the end.
Alex, is there anything to look at from a Texas Tech team, which is ranked in the top 10, is going to probably be the college football playoff possibly? Is there anything you guys can look at as a program and say, okay, they're here, we know we're climbing there, we can maybe do some things that we're not that far away from being.
Yeah, I think that everybody in the country kind of does that and say, okay, what are the models as we've gone through all the changes in college football? Is there, the one-offs are tough, because you say, okay, well, they did it this way, okay, let's do it like that. Okay, well, what were the circumstances that allowed them to build a roster a certain way, which, some people have more advantages than others in those things. And then you say, okay, well, despite those, perceived advantages or disadvantages where we stand, okay, how can we do it our own way, and ultimately look at it through the lens of both from a talent acquisition standpoint, evaluation. There's not the only team in the country that spent money on good players. Part of it is doing something with them, and then also being right, as opposed to being wrong. And so, making sure it's a good reminder from an evaluation standpoint, making sure you're not just throwing money at the thing, but making sure you're getting the right type of guys and those things. And then build that too. You look at it through the lens, okay, from a coaching standpoint, are they better coaches than us? And then you say, okay, what can we do? That's what you do control. And say, okay, well, how do we coach our guys better? Regardless of talent, why did Texas Tech's coaching staff get their players to play harder than the UCF coaches? And they flat did, and so that's an embarrassing thing to admit, but I got to own that, and so we got to be better.
Coach, I know you mentioned the effort and just zero positives to take away from this one, but given all the injuries that you guys had, how hard is it to kind of evaluate that game, knowing the injuries and some guys you may be getting back next week? Yeah,
I think I should circle back to the effort piece. Again, if we get maximum effort and fought our tails off, then I probably would sing a different song. There's some guys who are banged up that played, and we appreciate the fact that they did, and they weren't going to miss that game. And so I don't want to dismiss that by any stretch of the imagination. And also, not firing bullets at these guys either, but as a coaching staff, we got to get them to do it. We got iPads on the sideline, and we're looking at this thing in real time and saying, we need to get going here, boys. All right, they made a play. They made a sequence of plays. And we're not immune to an opponent doing that, regardless of talent level. And we couldn't right the ship, and we just didn't get that done. And so, no, you evaluate what the film is. You just do, and because otherwise it's too easy to dismiss the things you don't like, and then just move on. But ultimately, and we're kind of referencing that, I got a 9-game study of guys fighting their tails off, and so that's the thing is probably the only reason we can sleep at night as coaches. Is I had a 9-game study, and not all perfect by no stretch of the imagination. We haven't played enough winning football. But they played, and we've come in on Sundays, and I told the guys this, I come in on Sunday, man, I'm proud of you guys. So as a group of the team, and we haven't had the success that we've wanted, and the success that I believe we'll have, but it's been a group that have enjoyed coaching, enjoyed being in a fight with on Saturdays, pick the helmet up next series, and they just go, man, and it's been cool to be around. And that's them. You'd like to take credit as a coach, but that's them. And I got a 1-game study. We didn't do those things. And so we got to lick our wounds and move on.
you're facing a team this weekend that's had a tough season. There's a certain danger in that. What is the preparation like for them? What are you seeing from them?
Yeah, I think you see a group that has battled. I give them a lot of credit, give that coaching staff a lot of credit. It went sideways early on them, but you see a group that hasn't quit. They've managed to be in ball games, most specifically this last weekend. That's players and coaches alike. It's like, you could say it's easy to not do some of those things and punt on the season and move on, and for coaches and players, and they haven't done that, and I have a great respect for that. And I think from as you evaluate things, on the same note is saying, okay, why would they have any level of motivation that doesn't match what our level of we've had a tough season too, and we got to make sure that we get our guys playing at that type of fight and level against again an opponent that thinks they can right the ship against us.
Coach, turnovers ended up playing quite a role in Oklahoma State's last game. Kansas State getting 5 of them, only beating them by a score. I know you preach turnovers all season, but when you look at what Oklahoma State has done offensively, just how big are turnovers going to be this year?
Yeah, they're huge. They're huge, and we talked about road games last week, and look, I think we got one on the road all season. You're sitting like you just can't take weekends off. When it comes to those things. I know we're at home this week, but no, it's the number one stat, man. You look at that thing, and it has it's wins and losses, and you can circle back to that damn near every weekend, both in college and in professional football. Been very disappointed with our ability to do those things. We've had some opportunities, some balls in our hands and all that stuff, and then you can chalk it up to just didn't happen or bad luck or something like that, and we just don't do that. We got to find a way to create it. Close doesn't get it done, and so it will be a telltale this weekend, and I'll come up here every week and I'll say takeaways again. And when we get them, we got a great chance to win a football game. It's not guaranteed, but you percentage-wise, it completely tilts in your favor. And when you don't, you got to play damn near perfect. And so, yeah, they're a good example a week ago, and they're just what that takeaway count can mean.
Coach, we know that Coach Jordan Johnson was on that offensive staff at Oklahoma State last season. And I saw him in passing the other day, and he said, I know these guys pretty well. Has there been any conversations with the defensive staff at UCF about what you could expect from?
Yeah, not a lot, just simply because they've had so much change this year, and as you're going through their season and looking at, they've had to change some things up because of some injuries on offense and stuff like that, and so maybe in other years it'd probably be more of an impact, but just with, again, all the change, it's been he does a great job here, but and he would give us any secret he had, but just not much, just because of the again the changes.
Malachi Lawrence and Nigel Lee went down with injuries the previous week, and I know it was questionable whether they were to come back and play, but they wanted to. They gutted it out and played. I know it's important to those guys, especially for Malachi. Approaching the end of his career, he's been here the entire career. Just talk about the grit of those guys, especially Malachi, who's been here for 5 years, and that's something you don't see very often.
No, and that's exactly right. And then there's whatever injury reports are questionable. I mean, that's very real questionable. Like we're not sure type of deal. And so you're absolutely right for guys to say no, I'm playing when maybe there's some reasons not to, and continue to play over the course of the game when there's probably a lot of reasons not to. Those guys are dudes now, man. You walk into a place and we need more of them, but guys that they battle, they've been good leaders for the group. That's a good visual, I think, for the entire football team. And so, no, been excited to have our time with them. Coach Doss does a tremendous job with them, and we expect to have a real good game this Saturday.
Scott mentioned earlier this week that this is a very important game. He talked about being Senior Day and honoring the seniors. How important is that to give these guys one last chance? You may have only been here for 10 months with them, but to have a chance for these guys to get out there and be honored in front of the home crowd.
Yeah, I think you've asked a lot of them over the 10, 11 months you've had one. A lot of them. I mean, the amount of time you spend with these guys and all the change that takes place, and you're trying to not convince them, but say, okay, these things are gonna work, man, and then you're gonna reap the benefits of this. And on a season where the win-loss total goes the other way, you want them to have an experience that is positive. They put in the work. They've asked, they've done everything we've asked of them. and will continue to do. And like I said, I believe those guys will have their best game this weekend. But you just want to reap the benefits of the things that we ask them to do. And it's not just 1 year. I mean, that's the one we see, but just the cumulative amount of years, all the things that these guys are asked to do and what they go through over the course of a college career, especially when you're talking about coaching changes and everything else, it's a lot. And it's a professional sport now, and so they're expected to grin and bear it through, but they're people too. And so I just like to see them reap some of the benefits of it.
Coach, we spoke to Miles yesterday, and he said now it's a 2-game season. What are kind of the optics for the defense and the entire team, knowing that going into this one, it's a must-win if you want to reach ball eligibility? Yeah,
I think that's just it. I think you have 12 scheduled games, and you can evaluate it after 10, and on either side of this thing. There'll be someday around here we'll be 8-2 right now. We'll be talking about the last 2 games, and it's going to be a must-win at that moment also. And so we signed up for this, and when things don't go your way, if you take the childish approach, the immature approach, and then somehow you deflect from that and say, well, if it doesn't go my way, it doesn't matter. And it does matter. It always matters. We've talked about this in this room. Even sometimes you don't get the win, but the fight always matters. And so, finishing a certain way, and trying to right the ship and trying to put yourself in a position to win a ball game on Saturday. That's the only one we got right now. That's what you can control. And whatever it is, 12, 13 days from now, we can't control any of it. So it's also, we're in the day and age where the video is the video, and everybody needs good video. And coaches and players alike, because it's like I said, it's a professional sport from that standpoint, where we're all in a daily negotiation for jobs, right? And so, the last 2 games always matter.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on that, this season it's kind of been the defense has had an outstanding season, keeping the offense in a lot of games when they struggle to get points up on the board. You guys almost feel like another sense of urgency to kind of give one last push towards the final 2 games? Yeah,
we got to play winning football defensively, and there's some really good snaps and moments, and I appreciate you saying that, but we haven't played enough winning football defensively, and I'll say it again, like you just can't be in your silo and say, well, this is fine because we did X, Y, and Z, and we throw our hands up and we did enough this week or something. Well, guess what? Last week we didn't, right? And ultimately, what the scoreboard is one side has to score 1 point than the other, and whatever they score, we got to hold them to one less. And like I may have mentioned this, we chose this life, man. As defenses, like we just don't get to do the consolation prize. It just is what it is. But no, again, I'm not going to ignore the first 9 games. The guys battle. That is a critical piece to this thing, and we got to battle this weekend.
In light of the changes to the game, the transfer portal, et cetera, how does senior day feel different? Does it?
No, it does, and it's unfortunate. I mean, if you talk about the positives of college football, and there are, and there's certainly, as you've gone through changes, it's a difficult time to ask coaches. Anything you say as a coach sounds like an excuse, and that you're complaining. But I'll say it anyway, there's so much change, and at some point it will become the norm, and our rules change every 6 months, and you're trying to navigate all this stuff, and you're still talking to a group of, at some point we won't know anything different, but you're still talking to a group of coaches by and large at this level of football that got into coaching with the idea that you were going to recruit 18-year-old guys and you're going to develop them. There's something about you that wanted to do those things. Now, included in that, you want to win football games, right? So it's not all pie in the sky, like, just brotherly love all the time. But on the same token, there was something about you that appreciated that. And there's something about the text messages that you received from guys that you coached for 3 years or 4 years, and the shared experience that you had over the course of time. And the reality is that is completely wiped out. And so it's not kind of different, it's completely different. And it's frustrating to kind of be a part of sometimes. And it's one day. I mean, it's senior day. Of all the things in college football, the one thing that probably don't have, it's not appropriate to get too emotional about, the senior day is not the same way it used to be. There's other things that are probably bigger issues. But no, it is different. Now, the flip side is for a senior, a guy that very quickly doesn't get to put the pads on, guys that played this sport understand what it's like to not be able to do that anymore. So you still recognize that. Not everybody gets to play past the season that they're in. And so certainly from a respect standpoint, you respect those guys that they put so much in over the course of time. Maybe at different schools.
How vivid are your memories of your season?
You know, I vivid memories of, you know, I'm a Division III guy, and so we played playoffs and stuff like that, so you kind of didn't know when it was going to be. But I think the recognition, again, probably easier for a Division III guy because you knew your days were numbered, right? But just that you identify as a football player for a long stretch of time, and whether basketball, football, or whatever, and then you wake up one day you're not that anymore. There's just a reality of that for guys. And so again, any guy that's played the sport or played sports in general, it's not just football, but you can't help but have an appreciation for what those guys have put in and recognize the fact that it's coming to an end.
Two more.
Coach, what has it been like? Because the Houston game ended up being taking quite a toll from the injury bug standpoint. Braden, Jaden, Malachi, Niger League. So what has it been like contending with that since then and now coming into this last home game? Yeah,
you got to practice a little bit different. You got to be smart. You got to get the guys to Saturday while still getting the appropriate rest from a preparation standpoint. As experienced as some of those guys are, preparation still matters. You know, if it didn't, we wouldn't practice. So you can't just simply say, well, we'll just put them on the shelf and then get them going on Saturday. So you have to adjust, and you got to be smart. And sometimes, depending on the injury, it's completely contact related, and other times it may be a soft tissue thing. And you just got to make sure that you kind of control how hard they go and some of those things. But there's also, you know, say for instance they can't go, but there's other guys you got to prepare to put in the game, and so you got to make sure from a rep count standpoint they're getting that amount of work, and so no, that's a challenge, and it's not unique to us, but that has posed a challenge over the last couple of weeks.
You talked on how there were 0 positives from that game, but on the stat sheet, Damari Henderson kind of stepped up. Going into this week against Oklahoma State, what can fans expect to see?
Specific to Damari? Yeah, no, Damari's one of those guys that has played damn near every single snap for us defensively, and in fact I reminded him of that today. And there's got to be a chest out and shoulders back type of approach that he needs and has earned the right to have. And he's also one of those guys that there's more plays for him to make. As good as 12 was, man, I bet you I could find 3 more for him. And and if he was honest, I think he would say the same. And I don't want to minimize. I'm sure glad he made the 12 he did. But you know, he's one of those guys that again I give credit to. That you know, from a depth standpoint, you know, Phil played every snap. Braden Marshall, until he got injured, had played every snap this season. You know, Damari, every other than in games where we're able to sub type of deal at the end of it. So no, give him a lot of credit. No, I expect him to look like a guy that's started 10 football games. You know, that's a junior in college. You know, and run the show back there a little bit. And so no, I'd like to see that this week.
All right. Thanks,
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Coach.